Louisiana. It's Saturday night. I just want to make sure this is working right. It's been a while since I've done one of these shows. Let's just make sure this is all going the way it should.
Scotto says it started.
Well, that's an encouraging development. Okay. They changed the what do you call it? Like where the live chat is. Like I found it now, but like on the display here, like it used to be in one spot and then you couldn't, and then they moved it.
So yours doesn't look like that?
Well, no, it looks like it now that I pulled it up, but
okay.
like the location where you would go to click on it to find it has been
moved
moved
right,
around.
yeah.
So
yeah, they've been changing it around.
Yeah, so
Tanisha says hello, everybody from Connecticut.
People who follow this channel are well traveled.
Yeah.
And then there's people like you who never leave your house.
Yeah. Pretty much. Unless I'm going on a trip, I don't go anywhere. I go to work.
Well, you have one of the shortest commutes out of anybody I know.
3 miles each way.
That's not bad.
My car is going on 3 months old and it only has 750 miles on it.
Jeez. All right, so we are doing tonight's program live on location from the suburbs of New Orleans, Louisiana, and this is going to be a joint production with Roadway Wiz and 504 Road Trips. I'm pleased to introduce my guest panelist for this evening's video, Jason, the webmaster of the 504 Road Trips YouTube channel. Good to have you on the program.
Good to be here.
We are covering Interstate 10 across southern Louisiana between Lafayette and New Orleans. And I'm sure there will be a lot of stuff that gets brought up in conversation along the way, but we'll try to cover as much ground as we can over the course of tonight's video. And I would like to start out by reminding people that there is a big road meet coming up down this way in February, and that's actually why I'm here this weekend to do a bunch of scouting for it. You and I, Jason, were out for most of the day today looking at stuff and filming some potential future behind-the-scenes content for this meet itself, which was a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to do that. We got a lot accomplished. So the meet itself will be on February 17th and 18th of 2024, so it's actually coming up pretty quick. That's just over 3 months from now. And it'll be a 2-day event, and it'll be centered around a part of the country that really doesn't see a whole lot of activity in the road meet realm. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. The other thing I want to mention really quick, I'll let you talk about whatever content you're uploading in a second.
Okay.
There's been new activity on the Gribble Nation podcast lately. Doug and I have been uploading new content for that lately. So if you haven't already listened to that, I certainly recommend you check that out. On my YouTube front, I'm uploading a whole bunch of stuff from the state of Utah right now. I went from Kansas to Utah, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff coming up in the next few weeks or so. That's going to be kind of hop skipping around the country. So it won't be boring as we transition into winter, that's for sure. The other thing I want to mention is that I created channel memberships for my channel, and I know you've had this on your channel for a little while now, I think.
Well, yeah, but they've finally introduced a feature that makes it worth it.
Yeah. And the feature that we're talking about is that you're able to schedule videos to be published at a later date but be made available immediately for members. So for instance, the way that this would work for me is that I could upload videos that would be published for public consumption, a month from now, let's say. But if I publish it now, members from my channel would be able to see them as soon as they're published. So you get to see them weeks ahead of time, which is a pretty neat little perk that I'm finally able to offer people. The membership can be accessed on the home channel. On the home page of the channel, you can click on the join button. You can also click on the membership tab to learn more about the perks that are involved. There's early access to videos, as I said. There's also going to be, I'm looking to do more like member-only content, so this could be like live streams. There might be exclusive webinars I decide to do. And there's a number of other things that I'm going to be working on in the coming weeks to sort of get this going. But certainly recommend that you check that out if that's something that you're interested in. Certainly feel free to sign up. What would you like to say about what you're doing on your channel these days?
Well, our most recent project was we drove U.S. Highway 11 from Irish Bayou to Rouse's Point, New York. And that's what we're putting up on our channel right now. And on the way back, we drove I-95. So we'll have I-95 from the Canadian border in Maine all the way eventually to Miami, Florida. We didn't quite make it all the way down on this trip. We had a blowout in North Carolina, and so that ended our trip a little bit early, but we're going to go back out and hit that spot in North Carolina and finish filming down to Miami probably next summer, because it's going to be that long before we finish Highway 11. It's going to take a long time to get all that uploaded to YouTube.
Yeah, 11 goes on for quite a while.
1,600 miles, I think.
It's something like that, yeah. And you're only in, what, Tennessee right now?
We're still working on Tennessee. It's got a ways to go.
Yeah, all right. So tonight's video will get started in just a few moments. I'll show you the overview here. So we'll be traveling the length of I-10 between, you see Lafayette in your left side of the page here, and we'll run eastward, following the interstate as it goes through Baton Rouge, the state capital of Louisiana, through the New Orleans metro area, and then out to the Mississippi state line at the Pearl River Delta, which is a distance of about 170 miles, something like that. So does anybody in the live chat have any questions before we get started? I mean, this is our 28th virtual tour episode, so if you've been with us before, you probably know the deal by now. You know how these episodes work. But we'll get, if nobody's got anything, we'll get started. And of course, remember that if you follow my channel, you probably will like the 504 Road Trips channel as well. So if you haven't already subscribed to both our channels, I certainly recommend that you go over to his side of things and check out the stuff that he's got going on there, because he puts out an interesting video or two every once in a while.
Every now and then.
Every once in a while. Okay.
At 13 watching, that's pretty good for right now.
We got a nice, loyal following,
Yeah.
I would say. The people are so nice who watch my videos,
And there's actually more thumbs up than there are people watching right now, so you're doing really good.
Well, you know what? We will put this video in the Hall of Fame tonight, maybe. All right. So we're going to begin here. We're jumping off. We are going to join I-10 eastbound at, what is this? US 90 coming up from Lafayette off the Evangeline Thruway. And yeah, so your TV, Jason, is like what, 10 seconds behind this?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of delay you've got set on it.
Well, no, this is the live feed. And then your TV is hooked up to whatever YouTube
it's hooked up to YouTube. So
it's hooked up to YouTube,
yeah.
but it's not hooked up to the actual live feed.
Right. So yeah, that is going to be behind.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know that it really matters, but
Northwest Indiana Elevators.
yeah.
John Nashville Productions.
As we join I-10 eastbound, we have about 130 miles to downtown New Orleans. I think the first time that I drove this section of the freeway, it was still 2 lanes each direction. This was filmed in February of 23. And I don't remember it being like this when I went through the first time.
I've never seen this.
Yeah.
It was 2 lanes the last time I went through there.
Yeah, so they added the 3rd lane, at least through Lafayette proper, and then it narrows back to 2 lanes once we get out of the city here. So for people who are not familiar with your channel, Jason, maybe you could talk for a couple minutes about the kind of work you do, the areas of the country you've covered, and stuff like that, you know?
Well, I mean, we started out covering the streets of New Orleans, and kind of ran out of that pretty quick. And so we just started documenting our travels, and it's just basically dash cam video, just like this, except I do voiceovers telling about the roads and the places we go through and the history of some of the places. But other than that, it's really just dash cam video.
Yeah.
We speed it up through some of the parts, you know, where there's not a whole lot to see, and we slow it down when there's, you know, as we pass through towns, we try to stay off of the interstates and on the back roads like the U.S. highways and state highways, because there's just more to see. Although we have covered quite a bit of interstate.
Yeah, you've been all over the place, right?
Well, we've now been to, with our last trip, we've been to 30-something states. I forget exactly how many, but we've been just about everywhere except the southwest part of the country.
Well, you definitely have to make it out to like Arizona at some point. Yeah. I think you could go nuts there with all the stuff you could film out that way.
And Arizona is the one continental state that I have never been to.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Arizona's the one that's left.
47 states. I got Arizona, Hawaii, and Alaska left. That's it.
Okay.
So, somebody was asking if I-10 goes through New Orleans, and yes, I-10 does go through downtown New Orleans.
Yeah, thank God. Otherwise, it'd be a pretty... Could you imagine doing a virtual tour of I-12 instead?
Oh, well...
I don't think that would be very interesting.
I've done video of I-12, but I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about as far as a virtual tour.
Yeah, it wouldn't make for a very good episode of this, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, why do we have double white lines? This is a way in motion?
Yeah, I think that's what that is.
That's gotta be. You're not supposed to change lanes.
Yep.
Like I said, this has all been... Oh yeah, there's the way station.
Yeah.
This has all been seriously upgraded since the last time I went through there.
Yeah, so most of my videos you're not able to see like the front hood of the car. However, on this particular drive I think it was a Dodge Charger. It was either, I can't keep them straight, either the Charger or the Challenger, one of those two.
The Charger's a 4-door, the Challenger's a 2-door.
Alright, so then it was it was definitely a 4-door. And the hood on the Charger is a bit higher up than most cars, so that's why you're seeing the hood design. I didn't change the mounting system of the camera at all. It just kind of looks a little different because that's where the hood is. Usually it's not. Usually it's out of view, but in this case it is, at least on the very bottom of the screen, which I actually kind of like. It gives you more of an impression that you're looking out the front of
Right.
the car, you know.
You have a Subaru Impreza now?
That's my personal car, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've had that one. What do we got? I got that one in February of 21.
Oh, okay.
So going on 3 years ago. I've owned 3 cars to this point. All 3 of them have been all-wheel drive hatchbacks. That just seems to be the kind of thing I go for.
Well, you drive in the snow occasionally, so
Well, you know, we do have something up in the Northeast that you guys don't have to deal with very much, and that is winter.
yeah. Which, for anybody who doesn't know, here in New Orleans today, it hit 80 degrees.
Oh, it was lovely today,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it was nice.
Oh, yeah.
Now, a few days ago, we were in the 50s.
I know, you poor thing. You must have been freezing.
No, it doesn't bother me.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm perfectly fine with 50s. It gets below 50s, which we rarely see. You know, then I'm kind of miserable.
Yeah, that generally doesn't happen south of the lake, though. It's more of like a north of the lake thing where that happens, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing this is 3 lanes all the way to the Atchafalaya Basin Freeway.
Yeah, we're coming up on the Atchafalaya Bridge, and we're gonna drop the right lane coming up here. It'd be nice if they had a 6-lane freeway all the way across, but
Well, that'd be kind of hard to put on that elevated portion.
right. I mean, it
Oops.
kind of needs it, you know, because of the amount of traffic that takes. What are you doing over there?
No, I hit something. Terrell
He's
Matt's
try-
with us now.
He's trying to watch the stream on his big screen here.
I'm just watching the chat.
We gotta make sure that you gotta make sure you don't press the wrong buttons or something.
Right. Yeah, Scott, it would be a major undertaking to 6-lane, what is that, a 20-mile bridge?
It is one of the longest bridges in the country.
It's the 3rd longest, I believe, because the other 2 longest are closer to New Orleans.
The other 2 longest are in Louisiana too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Atchafalaya comes in at about 19 miles, and then the Manchac Swamp is about 20 or 21, something like that. And then, obviously, the most famous entry of these is the Causeway, which goes from Greater New Orleans up to Mandeville.
And actually, that counts as 2 bridges because they have different lengths.
I
They were
think-
built at different times.
Yeah, I think they do classify them as 2 different bridges, yeah.
And I-55, we had a major disaster on the Manchac Swamp Freeway the other day, where 168 cars were involved in a pileup. Yes, a fireball, and
Yeah, it was
it was very unfortunate. 6 people didn't make it. I think it was 6.
Yeah, as we sit here right now recording this episode, the northbound lanes of I-55 are still closed, leading north from I-10 up to Ponchatoula.
Yeah, we have several marsh fires burning in the area, and that the smoke from the marsh fires combined with fog brought visibility down to 0. Like, couldn't see past the end of your hood.
Wow.
And that's something that's happened occasionally. It's happened on I-10 in New Orleans East. I actually drove through it one time when it was like that on I-10 in New Orleans East, and it comes up very fast, and all of a sudden you just can't see, and you got to hope nobody's in front of you or in your way.
Yeah.
And you can't stop because somebody will hit you.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's a catch-22. You just got to cross your fingers and hope you get through it.
Yeah, that's gotta be pretty damn scary.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem with some of these interstates in Louisiana. It's like once you're on them, you're stuck.
Right.
Like you have nowhere to go. And certainly that's the case on these elevated bridges that we're gonna see tonight. But yeah, there's just once you're on them, it's just miles and miles of causeway, and there's no room to bail there. You know, you're kind of stuck, and you gotta hope that, as you said, you gotta hope that there's nobody in front of you or behind you if you get in a situation like that.
Yep.
Here's the Atchafalaya Bridge. This is milepost 0. We have 19 miles to go before we touch down on dry land again. I-10 between Lafayette and Baton Rouge was constructed mostly in the mid-1960s. The Atchafalaya Bridge being the centerpiece of that project. As you can imagine, when this was built, it was built in the years before you had the really stringent environmental regulations put in place. This was before the EPA became really prominent in this country. It's very difficult to imagine a project like this being built today with today's regulations and stuff like that. And this is kind of a common thread with a lot of projects in Southeast Louisiana that have happened over the years. You know, they happened before there was stringent environmental review of a lot of these things. But the Atchafalaya Bridge being one of the great achievements of the interstate system, regardless of how you look at it. Yeah, hasn't it been? It's been very dry around here, like this past summer, right?
This is the worst drought that we've had since Hurricane Katrina, and it actually extends earlier in the year. We haven't had much rain in the last 6 months. After Hurricane Katrina, we didn't really get any rain until like December.
Wow.
And everything dried up. My backyard is dead. The front yard has fared a little better, but the backyard has just died.
Yeah.
From the drought.
Did all the pool water evaporate out?
I've been having to add about an inch of water every 3 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, my water bill's been it's usually about $60. It's been anywhere from $150 to $250 for the last 3 bills. That's for 2 months.
Yeah.
But,
Wow.
yeah, it's been bad.
It's been bad, and the level of the Mississippi River has dropped significantly, and that's been another thing that's been in the news recently is saltwater intrusion into the Mississippi River basin. And I think the main parts of New Orleans Metro have been spared that, but the downriver parishes have been dealing with that issue for a while now. Like, I don't know how they ended up dealing with that, if they just barged in water or they did something.
I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know in Lower Plaquemines Parish, they say they got salt water running out of the taps.
I would imagine so, yeah.
And Laura's asking how long and keep the pool open down here. The pool, you could go swimming right now. It would be a little cold because I've been adding cold water to it every few days, but the pool is swimmable until mid-November usually.
Yeah, I would say, like, I would think normally, like, right around now is when the pool season ends, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and then it doesn't really pick up again until, what, April?
Really more like May or June. Because once it gets cold, it takes a long time to warm back up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So the Atchafalaya River is one of the main tributaries in south central Louisiana. It has been kind of one of those things over more recent years. It's been discussed as a potential future path of the Mississippi River, you know, without all the flood control, you know, aspects of, you know, the natural or the man-made intervention that's been made by the Army Corps of Engineers over the years. The Mississippi River has changed course countless times over the years, and it probably will again change course someday in the future. But from a water management perspective, the way that the river wants to go, it wants to kind of follow the Atchafalaya River because that is the path of least resistance between the upriver portion and the Gulf of Mexico, which is where the mouth of the river is located. It's an interesting kind of thing to toss back and forth, but at some point, someday in the future, most of the river water that's coming down the Mississippi may in fact end up coming down this way instead, which would obviously be a significant game changer for the state of Louisiana economically. I don't think this is something that we have to think about anytime soon happening, but it is one of those things that's always kind of out there as a distant and remote possibility. And of course, Louisiana's got a lot of stuff that they ought to be concerned about from a natural perspective. Of course, they are in the middle of the Gulf Coast, which is sort of, I would say, the middle of Hurricane Alley, if you will. And they've certainly been no strangers to big storms, and especially in recent years, as Jason has already alluded to.
Yeah, the thing about the river changing course now is the Army Corps of Engineers flood control structures and levees and stuff will prevent that from happening. Is that a trooper on the side of the road?
That was a Louisiana state trooper. Yep.
Yep. So yeah, unless the Army Corps of Engineers stops maintaining the levees and the flood control structures, another change of course of the river really is unlikely. If not for that, the river would not be flowing through New Orleans today. That would have happened long, long ago, that it would be coming out around Morgan City.
Yeah.
They're talking about the new speed cameras that are up on the Atchafalaya Bridge. They're not in effect yet, but I think they go into effect early next year.
Yeah, what is that about?
So basically, they take a picture of your license plate as you enter the bridge, and they take another picture as you leave the bridge, and then they calculate the amount of time it took you to cross the bridge. And if you do it in under a certain amount of time, you get a ticket in the mail.
Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Really?
And the equipment is already in place. It probably was when you drove this. The equipment's already in place, but they haven't actually started doing that yet.
I've never heard of speed enforcement being done that way.
Yeah. It's done in other places, because I had heard of it before this, but yeah, it's
well, and I guess the from a safety perspective, this can be a pretty dangerous highway to drive at times.
This is a very dangerous highway. It doesn't have enough shoulder on the left side. It's
we
barely got a shoulder on the right.
As we come to this next high level section, you'll see that we have no shoulders at all.
Right.
This would never pass the test in any design office of any engineering firm. If this was being designed today, this would just not fly.
This is all before the current standards of the interstate highway.
Yeah, and you could get away with something like this back in. This is probably like late 50s, early 60s design.
This was
design
built in
standards.
the 70s.
Was it not until the 70s?
Well, I know in my lifetime.
Yeah.
My dad's family was from southwestern Louisiana, and in my lifetime, when I was real young, we had to take Highway 90 to Lafayette, because there was no interstate between Baton Rouge and Lafayette, or it wasn't complete. It was probably under construction, but
yeah, I would think that this took several years just to put this in.
yeah. Now there is that one exit there, so if you could go 100 miles an hour, get off that exit, chill out for a few minutes, and get back on the highway.
I guess that's one way you can get.
That's
around
how you
it,
get
right?
around the average speed camera.
So the cameras are going to be at each end of the bridge.
That's
I guess.
from what I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
They do that on some of the turnpikes in Florida, I believe.
Well, yeah, I'm used to that concept on toll roads. And that concept has been around for decades, where in the days before cashless tolling was a thing, like on the New York Thruway, like you would be given a ticket when you got on the road, and then
Right.
when you got off, you would hand in the ticket and pay.
And yeah, so they got a timestamp ticket saying when you started and when you finished.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the concept has been around for a number of years. It's just never been applied to speed enforcement,
Right.
as far as I'm aware.
The Northwest Indiana Elevator says this was opened in '73. There was some part of I-10 that was not open between Baton Rouge and Rain is the town, or Church Point. Church Point, Rain. It's one exit on I-10 in southwest Louisiana. There was some part of I-10 that had not been opened yet that required us to take Highway 90 to get out there. Or it might have been 190. We might have driven I-10 to Baton Rouge and then got on 190 and drove the rest of the way that way.
I think that is officially the emergency detour route
Well,
for
if you
10.
go from New Orleans and you want to get somewhere up I-49, it's actually much faster to cross the bridge in Baton Rouge and then go hit 190, LA 1 to 190 and then 190 to 49 than it is to stay on I-10 and go to 49.
Oh, okay.
It's probably 10 miles shorter that way because 190 hits further north.
Right, yeah. Because it comes into 49 at what is that, Opelousas?
Karen Crow, might be Opelousas.
Yeah.
But everybody says it's faster.
Well, it's probably not that bad of a drive, and you don't have to deal with this bridge either.
Right, exactly.
So
Now there is a similar bridge on 190, but it's not this long.
yeah,
You know, it's like a mile long.
yeah. I'm trying to think of how many like super long causeway like bridges we have here in Louisiana. There's this one. We mentioned the Manchac Swamp on I-55. We mentioned the causeway. That's 3. And then you've got our kitty cats are causing trouble in here. How many cats do we have now in here?
7.
We're up to 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, every time you say that's the last one, I'm like, yeah, until the next one. You guys keep adding kitty cats,
Yeah.
so. But there's a bunch. Like, there's Bonnie Carey Spillway on I-10. There's got to be a bridge that's like 10 miles long on US 90, like east of Morgan City.
Oh.
And then there's Gateway to the Gulf Expressway.
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot
long
of them.
bridge. I can't think of where that is. But somewhere west of Houma, east of Morgan City, there is a very long bridge.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the town that's nearest there. But that's another one that goes on forever. So I don't know how many I just rattled off, but that's a whole bunch of bridges that are at least.
Well, then there's the bridge that's just west of Laplace. That's 7 miles, I think. That's a pretty long bridge. I mean,
Yeah.
by any other place's standards. But I want to see something because Bonnie Carey Spillway and the Manchac Swamp Bridge are pretty much one bridge. And
then that ties into 310, which is its own bridge, right?
to a certain point, yeah. I think it touches down before you cross the river.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But if you get on the Bonnie Carey Spillway, I-10 West, and then you take the I-55 exit. Well, this isn't giving accurate information because I-55 is closed, but
if you flip it around,
it's 34.8 miles
yeah.
without touching ground. That's longer than the causeway.
Yeah.
About almost 10 miles.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why they don't consider that one continuous bridge, because it's two different highways, but it really is one continuous bridge. And yeah, you're right. If you got on
in Destrehan or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to see, is where that bridge starts.
I think it's like right
Here?
I mean, just somewhere right, somewhere.
Yeah, that's the La Branche wetlands, like where
Yeah.
310 crosses 61, and that's why there's a bridge there.
I think that's where
So
it starts there.
if you start here,
Yeah, if you include the 310 causeway in there, then that's closer to 40 miles.
yeah, it's almost 40 miles.
And then it touches down briefly in Destrehan before going over the Mississippi River, which is another long bridge.
Yeah.
So Louisiana is full of bridges, that's for sure.
39.2. And that's via Old 51, but that's not going to be any different mileage than I-55 would be.
Yeah, right. So we've touched down on dry land again after 19 miles, and I'm not going to get a speeding ticket. Let's see.
Yep, LA 3000, that was the first highway in the 3000 series. That goes to a place called, I think that goes to Maringouin, which is French for mosquito.
Is that what that is?
Or Cajun French, I guess. French.
Is that how Louisiana numbered state highways? They would just sequentially add new numbers?
After the 1955 renumbering, I think all the highways started with 3000. So I'd have to look it up exactly how that worked again.
So there was a great renumbering somewhere in there.
Yeah, 1955.
Yeah.
So any highway that existed then, after they renumbered them all, those were all like 2-digit, maybe 3 digits. But then new highways created after that point in 1955 they started with 3000.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see 30XX and 31XX. I think they're all the way up to 34, 35XX now.
Oh, okay. And these are new designations that were created since then.
Right.
Okay. So as we start to approach Baton Rouge, which is the state capital of Louisiana, we should mention what's going on with the LSU game.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. That's an appropriate thing to bring up, isn't it?
Who are they playing?
It's Bama.
Oh!
It's the big one.
That explains a lot of the memes that I saw on Facebook in the last couple of days regarding their opponents. And they're pretty brutal.
This is SEC country. I'm not surprised.
This is giving me scores from 2020.
Well, that's not very helpful, is it?
Okay, they're in the second quarter, 9 minutes 41 seconds left. LSU leads Alabama 13-8. Wait, no, that's not right. Sorry, LSU is losing to Alabama 7-14.
Oh, alright.
That will crush the souls of everyone in Louisiana if Alabama beats LSU.
I mean, that is routinely like their biggest game of the regular season. I would think. Who else would be their biggest rival? I don't.
No, that is their biggest rival.
Yeah. Well, in Louisiana, they spell it Geaux.
Yep. Another delivery, I think.
Oh. The delivery people love you today.
That's every day. It's UPS.
You should invite the UPS guy inside and
Yeah,
do some commentary
him,
for
yeah.
us. Yeah.
Gross Tate to Lobdell I-10 opened in 1974. Okay, so what about west of Lafayette? That's what I'm wondering about.
I don't know that that was all that recent west of Lafayette.
No, I just think it was after 1974.
Yeah.
The UPS man may very well be delivering cat food. Last week we found a deal on cat litter. We wound up ordering 800 pounds of cat litter.
Oh my God.
Well, Carrie and I both saw the deal, and we both ordered we both ordered 10 40-pound sacks independently of each other, not realizing, and so 20 40-pound sacks of cat litter showed up.
Oh my God.
I'm sure whoever delivered, the Amazon person that delivered that, was probably pretty pissed off. Nobody was home to see the delivery.
Well, I guess you're set on cat litter
For a couple of years, yeah. Yep. But it was a good deal. It was a really good deal. Cat litter's expensive. Yeah, if I spill oil in the driveway when I'm changing my oil or something, it's good for soaking it up. It's good for all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you know what? That's true. It does have other uses also.
And so the cat litter that I was getting auto delivered through the Subscribe and Save suddenly wasn't available anymore. And
yeah,
that was part of the reason why I was looking for other brands of cat litter. But yeah, they're very heavy bags. It's a lot easier in a box.
you know what this reminds me of? You talking about like 800 pounds of cat litter. Remember all the dopes who were stockpiling toilet paper during the pandemic?
Yep.
Who probably still have like 5 years worth of toilet paper sitting around in their closets or whatever. That's what that made me think of.
Look, I got a case of that newspaper grade toilet paper, for industrial applications at the office.
Yeah.
I just, grabbed from the janitorial supply guy. It's just one case, but it's like 96 rolls.
Wow.
But, that's just how that stuff is sold.
So Baton Rouge, as I said, is the state capital of Louisiana. It is, I think it's the second largest. You have to look this up, where its population is. I think it's the second largest city in the state.
I'm not sure about that.
But I'm not sure about that either.
Shreveport might fall in there somewhere.
Yeah. And as far as population of the metro area, I'm not sure where Baton Rouge falls either.
Oh, no, New Orleans and Baton Rouge and Shreveport.
Okay.
So 369,000 for New Orleans, 221 for Baton Rouge, and 180 for Shreveport. But then it lists Metairie as 140,000 as the fourth, even though it's not a city.
No, it's not.
Metairie's an unincorporated area. It's the largest unincorporated area in the United States by population.
Is that right?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Okay, Gonzales to Sorrento was the last segment of I-10 to open in Louisiana in 1978. That makes sense. we had cousins in Gonzales that we used to go visit, and you couldn't take Interstate all the way there either. But that would explain why we would have taken Highway 90 to Lafayette, and then we might have taken 10 from there, or we might have taken 190 from there.
Because Gonzales is east of Baton Rouge, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Gonzales and Sorrento, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're between Laplace and Baton Rouge, I guess.
Now here's another question for you, population-wise. The largest parishes in the state by population, I want to say it's Jefferson
Probably.
is number one. A lot of people would assume it's Orleans, but it's
No.
Jefferson is definitely larger than Orleans.
Well, St. Tammany probably beats out Orleans.
I like how they call
number
them.
one, East Baton Rouge Parish, which includes the city of Baton Rouge,
Okay.
at 450,000.
All right.
Jefferson Parish at 425, then Orleans at 369. Which
Yeah.
Orleans Parish and the city of New Orleans are the same, or they're the same.
They're
Same
synonymous.
boundaries, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
St. Tammany at 273, Lafayette.
I'm surprised
at
that St.
247.
Tammany has that many.
St. Tammany's a huge parish.
St. Tammany is Slidell, right?
Slidell, Covington, Mandeville.
Oh, it goes all the way out there.
It goes
Okay.
halfway between Covington and Hammond.
Okay.
About halfway.
Okay.
Yep. We're not in Baton Rouge yet?
Yeah, we may have crossed into East Baton Rouge at some point.
I mean West Baton Rouge.
Or yeah, West Baton Rouge, that's what I meant.
Oh, I-10 to LA 4 miles.
Yeah, we're coming up on the Mississippi River Bridge, which was completed in, I want to say, 1968.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the, I believe it is the highest bridge on the Mississippi River as far as the elevation of the roadway to river level.
That sounds about right.
I think it's a few feet higher than the Crescent City connection.
Yeah. Whereas the 190 bridge is low to a point where it prevents certain large ships from getting past it.
That's right, yeah. But ocean-going vessels have no reason to go up river from Baton Rouge.
No.
That's as far upriver as
yeah,
they go.
yeah, like freighters and stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, the U.S. 90 bridge to Mississippi is still closed, and it will be.
For many years.
Yeah, they're not even. They haven't even started taking bids on that. They don't care. There will be hell to pay if there's a hurricane evacuation out of New Orleans, though, and that's not a viable route. That's the biggest reason that needs to stay open.
Yeah, it needs to be there for the redundancy more than anything else. I don't know that carried a lot of traffic back
It really
in the day.
didn't.
But it's a good parallel route to have because, as you also alluded to off the air, you know, there's always something screwed up happening on I-10 in that stretch through the Pearl River Delta.
Yeah. And it'll completely close I-10, and then you got this really long convoluted route up I-59, and
You gotta go.
it's
up
a
to-
little two-lane highway that I'm assuming has been improved, but years ago when I lived up that way, parts of it weren't even paved yet. It goes around the back of the Stennis Space Center. Yeah, it's really bad if I-10 closes across the state line.
Yeah, so that's a logical detour to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, here is the Mississippi River. And we're going to have interchanges coming up here with our next interstate highways. We have 110, which is the spur into downtown Baton Rouge and the state capital area. I think if you're looking for a freeway outside of New Orleans that's got that old classic feel to it, that's very substandard and yet a lot of fun to drive, I would say 110 is a good choice. As we cross the Mississippi River on the Horace Wilkinson Bridge, which was completed in 1968. This is another one of these impressive steel cantilever truss bridges that the lower Mississippi River is famous for having. There are several bridges that are of a similar design to this on the lower river in Louisiana. And once we get over this, we enter East Baton Rouge Parish and the city of Baton Rouge proper. A few miles ahead is going to be the split with I-10 and I-12. We'll talk more about that when we get up to that point. But, Louisiana State University is located near this area as well. I like how on your thing that you brought up there, it says Louisiana counties by population.
Like East Baton Rouge Parish County?
Sure.
Yeah.
This is one of those weird choke points in the whole interstate in Louisiana because you have two lanes staying on I-10 East, but then the right-hand lane, as we make this turn to the right, becomes an exit-only lane for one of the off-ramps up here for a local street. So really there's only one continuous through lane for I-10 East at this point. And as you can imagine, this becomes a traffic nightmare at times. This is always backed up. I'm actually amazed I got through here without any delay. Usually it's not this easy.
They've improved things a little bit here, and now there's an exit 1K.
Oh, they added a new
yeah,
letter?
There's an exit right where I-10 and I-110 come together if you're coming off of 110 on the 10.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it's 1K. And Louisiana counties are called parishes because this was the population of Louisiana back in the late 1700s, early 1800s was entirely Catholic, and so the political subdivisions or municipalities or whatever were named after the church parishes. Which is why so many of them have a saint's name, St. Charles, St. John the Baptist.
That's right.
St. Tammany, who was actually an Indian chief and wasn't even Catholic, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, St. Bernard is another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them, yeah. Yeah, there's also Jefferson Davis Parish.
Yeah, that's right.
He wasn't a priest, though, or whatever.
No. No, I don't believe he was Catholic either.
I think that's right, yeah. As we approach the I-12 split, we're passing through the area where LSU is located, or maybe it was a little bit further back behind us at this point. I-12 is basically the shortcut, quote-unquote, for I-10. It kind of takes a path along the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain, whereas I-10 follows a path along the south shore and goes through the more populated New Orleans metro area. I would say that a lot of the long-distance traffic along the central Gulf Coast between, say, eastern Texas and like Mississippi and points east of there is probably going to follow I-12 just to bypass the New Orleans metro area.
Yeah, any GPS will navigate you along I-12. Unless you specifically want to go, drive through downtown New Orleans, and then there's a reason to take I-10. But people argue that I-12 should have been the main line of I-10, and the portion of I-10 that goes down to New Orleans should have been an auxiliary 3DI Um, maybe 610.
I can't imagine that New Orleans would have liked that.
Well, no, and the thing is back then New Orleans was still one of the most important ports in the United States, and it had to have a two-digit interstate running through it. Back in the days of Eisenhower.
Well, yeah, the New Orleans obviously had a major port presence at the mouth of the Mississippi River. It also was a major business hub and corporate hub in the oil industry.
Right.
Up until, what is that?
About 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the 80s and the 90s.
Late 80s, early 90s, yeah.
Right.
Kind of moved to Texas, but
yeah, gradually the hub of the business side of it migrated from New Orleans west to Houston, and that's kind of been how it shook out. I mean, Katrina certainly didn't do the city any favors, but the nail was already in the coffin by the time that happened.
right.
And that's down to political stuff
Well,
between
yeah.
like Louisiana and Texas and local stuff, and we don't have the time to get into all of that.
Right.
But that's more deeply rooted than I think a lot of people realize.
And New Orleans is still a pretty big port as far as imports and exports. It's a major cruise ship port. But, yeah, it doesn't have the kind of influence that it once did.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wonder about the future of this area. When you are kind of a one-trick pony in that your biggest export is tourism.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty tough as a city to gain a sustainable footing economically.
Right.
With that being the case, and of course it wasn't always like that. I mean, there was at least one Fortune 500 company that was anchored in New Orleans at one time, right? I mean, this is going back to like the 70s or the 80s.
I don't know what's still.
But you had a lot of corporate presence in this city. Not that long ago.
Well, the corporate presence that's still here has mostly moved out to Jefferson Parish. A lot of
that hasn't helped
business
either.
Moved out of the CBD and went to Metairie,
Yeah.
which is not even a city. It's like I said, an unincorporated area.
Yeah.
One Shell Square was Shell Oil's headquarters at one time.
Yeah. That might have been the one I was thinking.
They've vacated and gone to Texas, where I believe they also have a building called One Shell Square.
I think that's right. Yeah.
But One Shell Square in New Orleans is no longer One Shell Square. It's been renamed something else.
Yeah.
Not Willis Tower. That's Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they call One Shell Square anymore, but it's not One Shell Square.
Yeah. Right. And now you're gonna look that up.
Yes.
See, now you're curious.
CenturyLink and Entergy are the only Louisiana-based companies to make the annual Fortune 500 list of top revenue-generating companies in the U.S. And Entergy is based in New Orleans. I'm not sure about CenturyLink.
I don't even know where.
I assume
CenturyLink
that's
is
like
from.
an ISP or something.
I know the name. I just can't place it.
Yeah. Oh, it's the third largest telecommunications company in the United States.
Okay.
Entergy provides electricity to Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas, but not all of Mississippi, I know, and not even all of Louisiana, and I'm sure not all of Texas, because Texas doesn't even, they got their own grid.
Grid, yeah, Texas has an independent grid.
Yeah.
Well, and Texas is a pretty big state, so.
Well, yeah. CenturyLink. Residential home internet services. I've never. A Wikipedia article.
There's got to be something on them.
Lumen Technologies, formerly CenturyLink.
Oh, maybe that. Yeah, they did. they did rebrand, I think.
Oh, headquartered in Monroe, so that means there's only one Fortune 500 company in New Orleans,
Monroe.
Louisiana.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know why the hell anybody would be headquartered in Monroe. Monroe is like the third most dangerous city in the United States.
There's like nobody lives in Monroe, so.
Well, there's probably 50,000 people in Monroe, but
I don't
you know, it's not.
I can't think of anything.
It's kind of close to Shreveport. 47,000 people. It's the 8th largest city in the state. Monroe Metropolitan Statistical Area is 207,000. That's actually pretty damn big. Covers 3 parishes. And it's really not that close to Shreveport either. It's further east.
Oh, yeah, it's like 100 miles away.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that far east.
Yeah.
Another one of them US 80 cities.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's I-20, right? Like US 80 more or less
US 80
shadows
I-20.
I-20 for the most part.
Yep.
Well, at least until you get into Alabama.
Yeah.
Because that's where the
They
divide
split
happens.
up.
I think they split
West
up
of Birmingham.
I think it's around Meridian where they split up.
Yeah, I
isn't
think
it?
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
US 80 kind of dips south, whereas 20 starts to kind of, as it follows 59, it kind of moves north.
Yeah. I have been to both termini of US 80.
I haven't
In
been
my
to-
travels.
What? Considering what the western terminus?
I-30 in Dallas.
Okay.
Not
There's
the,
another.
not
There's another 2,000 miles of US 80
Well-
that doesn't exist anymore, but you could.
the, yeah. I
It
think,
is actually something you could almost follow most of the way, more so than even US 66.
I know
Route
there's,
66.
yeah, like in California, there's a lot of the old right-of-way of old US 80 is still, in some cases, it's still drivable. It still exists
Yeah.
in a lot of places. But it hasn't been signed as US 80 for decades.
Oh no, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I would like to one day follow US 80 as much as possible.
Yeah, 80's not that far from here.
80
And
is
then-
about 80 miles north, 90 miles.
Yeah. And then the
It runs
eastern,
along the northern border of Louisiana.
yeah, and then the eastern end of it is in Georgia.
Some island, isn't it?
Tybee Island.
Tybee Island. Yeah.
Yep. East of Savannah.
Yeah.
That's an interesting little drive too, if you ever
Yeah.
get to do that one.
That's been something we've wanted to do. You know, we covered US 80 from Jackson to Marshall, Texas.
And so you got a good chunk of it.
Yeah, we got a good chunk of it, but see, Scott's saying that Southeast Arizona has historic 80 signage.
Yeah.
It's probably not consistent outside of Arizona, but it's nice when they do that.
Like some states sign that kind of stuff as like scenic byways,
Yeah.
you know, which I appreciate.
Mississippi takes the old U.S. route number and adds a 1 in front of it
Really?
as a state highway. Yeah.
Oh, so like an
yeah.
old
So
alignment.
you like along 98, there's 198, and that was all the old. They do it on every highway except Highway 11.
I don't know that I ever noticed that.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, we saw that on 98. Where else did we see that? On 70. God, what was the one that we drove? The highway that runs from Chattanooga to Memphis.
72.
72. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a bunch of 172s in Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah. Or it was a couple. It wasn't a whole. There's not that much mileage in Mississippi.
There's
Laurel
a-
has 184. Well, that would be one. That would be
Okay. That's-
old 84,
right.
obviously.
Well, that makes sense.
And there's more than just Hattiesburg with 198. All along Highway 98 from Natchez, or well, Butte is where it starts now. All the way to the Alabama border. There's probably a dozen of them, and some are just little residential streets where they straightened out the highway.
Oh, okay.
Oh, 245 for US 45. I've never been up 45. But for whatever reason, with all the old routes of US 11, there's not a single one. I guess because it would have been 111.
That's probably, well, yeah, that's kind of the argument where you don't want to have a 3-digit repeating route intersecting a 2-digit repeating route
Right.
of the same number.
Right.
Because then you're just asking for trouble with confusion and all that. They managed to get away with it with, say, like I-55 and I-555 north of Memphis, but
Yep.
that's one of the only examples of
Yeah,
that.
that is the only example of that, isn't it?
On the interstate system, it might be.
Yeah. There is. You saw that earlier, looking through the YouTube. There is an unsigned I-444.
Right, but what saves that is that
It's unsigned.
well, it's unsigned, but it also intersects 244.
Oh, okay.
So it's not. It kind of is not quite the same thing.
Okay, so it never hits I-44.
Right. Well, that 444 is just like the southern and eastern quadrants of the Tulsa inner loop,
Yeah.
whereas 244 is the western and northern halves of it. Someday when I do a Tulsa webinar, I'll tell you all about why that interstate highway even exists in the first place, because that wasn't even part of the original plan.
Yeah.
That was kind of a political strong-arming affair there to secure funding for the interdispersal loops construction. But that's another story for another day.
Yep.
Would you like to talk about the New Orleans road meet for a little bit? While we have a little bit of time here on the
Sure,
video
might as
before
well.
we get into the New Orleans Metro.
Hang on, let me answer Laura's question there. Old 11 is just signed as Old 11 in a lot of cases, or it's Podunk Road. It does, it's whatever, whatever the local name is. It's not a numbered highway though. None of the ones that I saw were numbered highways. They were just named streets. Sometimes called Old 11, just Old 11.
Old Route 11 or something.
Old Highway 11.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, the New Orleans meet.
Yeah, so this is one that had been on my radar for a couple of years, actually. For those who don't know already, this is one of my favorite parts of the country to visit. For all of its flaws, New Orleans is one of my favorite cities to visit and explore. And I thought that if I was ever going to do a road meet that involved a lot of travel, like as a destination event, this is the kind of city that I would want to do this in. And we had a great opportunity come up for something early next year. There was the time was right to do something like this, I think. And I thought, what better way to celebrate my second national meet, and also it's coming up in the same time of the year as like the eclipse and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on in the early part of the year, but I feel like this is a good way to kind of get a bunch of people together down on the Gulf Coast, which is a part of the country that doesn't have a lot of road meets. I think there was a New Orleans meet like 15 years ago, I want to say. But
really?
That's the only one that I'm aware of.
Huh.
So this is really a road meet desert, this part of the country. And I would like to be able to bring my show to the people of the Gulf Coast.
It is kind of the end of the world, it's not a centrally located place, but I think it's one of those places that people, especially people that have never been here, might want to come visit. And people, some people just love New Orleans. So some people it might be a good excuse to get out here.
Yeah, I always tell people that if you've never been here before, you should probably visit it at least once,
Yeah.
just to see it. Because it is. I've said this off the air a bunch of times, but it is kind of a miracle that this city exists. Technologically, with all the work that's been done by the Army Corps of Engineers over the last 100 years or so, especially, to be able to create a metropolitan area of over 1 million people in this particular location that's basically surrounded by water on the Gulf Coast. It really, the creation of the modern New Orleans metro area is one of our country's great engineering achievements. And I think you could also say, on the flip side, that the disaster of Hurricane Katrina was one of our great engineering failures. So there's kind of that interesting, two-faced way of looking at things. But I think when you take the good and the bad and you put it all together, this is a really special part of the country. And I think that it doesn't get nearly the amount of attention that it deserves. And part of why I want to do this meet in February is to kind of bring more awareness to this part of the country from a roads standpoint. And I can tell you, and Jason will back me up on this because he sat in the car with me all day today. You poor thing. We looked at a number of different locations for stops, and we talked about some different ideas for the driving tours that I would like to do for the 2 days. One of the things that I think you're going to notice about the itineraries for both days is that there's going to be a lot of diversity. There's going to be road and bridge stuff, as there always is on meets, for instance. But you're also going to get a taste of some music history. You're going to get a taste of some architectural history. And there's going to be at least a couple Hurricane Katrina landmarks sprinkled into the mix as well. More than 18 years after that storm took place, it has left an indelible mark on the city's history and its trajectory. And I think that if we're going to have an honest conversation about this city, I think we have to sort of include that chapter in the discussion. And so I'm not going to shy away from that part of it. Because as you study it and as you come across the landmarks that we're going to include in this tour, I think you find that there's some really fascinating discussions that can be had about urban planning and development and management of these sorts of things, and how that all feeds into our transportation system and the stuff that we like to talk about on places like the AA Roads Forum and stuff like that. There's some really interesting stuff that you could spend hours dissecting. And when I do my New Orleans webinar at some point, which I'm hoping to do sometime around New Year's, we will hopefully dive into some of these topics on a deeper level. But for now, that's kind of your little teaser as to what is coming up in the weeks ahead as far as discussions that can be had on the channel. And then ultimately, when we have the meet in the field in February, these themes will certainly come up there as well. And I'm really excited to be able to bring these kinds of discussions to this community. I don't think that these conversations are had nearly as often as they should be had. And I think that this city and this road meet in particular gives us a pretty interesting opportunity, which I'm excited about.
I think we've got a pretty good itinerary plan. We just need to map it out to make it work logically.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track.
Yeah.
I think that you and I agree that the stops that we looked at today are definitely keepers.
Yeah. And as someone mentioned in the chat, this will be as everybody sobers up from Mardi Gras. The road meet is scheduled for what dates? It's
February 17th and 18th.
So yeah, the Fat Tuesday, which is Mardi Gras, falls on 13th.
Yeah,
so
it's very early this coming year.
anybody who might be able to get a week off, come down for Mardi Gras, because that's going to be, from the 9th through the 13th is when all the big parades happen, and whether you want to go down into the French Quarter, whether you want to go to the more family-friendly parades in Metairie, but you could come down and see the parades, and then you'll have a couple of days, 3 days to sober up.
Sober up
after
and go
Mardi Gras.
Yeah, sober up and go to church.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Mardi Gras is based around the religious calendar.
That's
Mardi
right.
Gras is the beginning of Lent. Ash Wednesday is the day following Mardi Gras, and then you've got 40 days of Lent, then Easter. So that's where that falls on the calendar. Mardi Gras is also Carnival season begins on January 6th every year. Mardi Gras floats because it's based on when Easter is.
Right, because Carnival begins on 12th night.
12th night, right.
Which is always the same.
The 12 days of Christmas.
Right.
You get that partridge in a pear tree. Well,
or something
you get
like that.
12 cackling roosters
12,
or something like that.
12 purring cats.
Yeah. And that's January 6th. And,
right, yeah.
That's the beginning of Carnival.
Yeah, so Carnival is going to be about as short as is possible.
Yeah, this is about the earliest Mardi Gras can fall.
Yep.
And
so that means you got only, 5 weeks to get all your partying in?
Yep.
Usually it's more like 8 weeks.
It can vary by up to 27 days. Actually, no, it's more than that. It's all based on the full moon that comes after the spring solstice or something.
And whatever it is that determines where Easter falls.
Right.
That's where you subtract 40 days from that to get your Lent, and then that between that and 12th night, that's your Carnival period.
Right.
Yep.
So anyway, we're going to be having this road meet the weekend after Mardi Gras, which is kind of a quiet time in New Orleans because, number one, it's cold, meaning it's going to be 55 degrees, which is too cold for a lot of New Orleanians to even leave the house, and everybody's still recovering from Mardi Gras, and so I think it's the perfect time to have a road meet. Yeah,
I would think that the weekend after Mardi Gras will be pretty interesting because it'll be quiet and everybody will be cleaning up from from the week before, I would think.
Yep.
But I would say that as long as it's not 110 degrees out, like
it's
it was
not
going
to be 110 degrees in February. It might be 75 degrees.
Well,
that's not unheard of.
Yeah.
But then again, like 4 years ago, it was in 2015, 27, no. What year are we in now? 23. It was in 2019. It got down into the single digits here around that time in February. It's very, very unlikely that will happen. But,
Yeah, I've been in this area in February a couple of times, and it's been like in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
I think that's
typical.
Yeah. But that's not bad.
And I don't think they're expecting us to have a cold winter this year. I haven't heard anybody say that we're supposed to have a cold winter.
I think you should be more worried about when you're going to get some rain.
Yeah, we definitely need the rain.
You need rain more than anything else.
So, for anybody that's interested, where on the AA Roads forum is the meet being discussed? Is it just in the Louisiana forum?
No, there's on the forum on the homepage. Like go to like the very home of and then go down
there's a road meets section.
Go to the road meets section, road enthusiast meetings.
So if you go to aaroads.com and then click on forums and then scroll down to road enthusiast meets.
What is it called? The thread is you'll find it. It's National Road Meet New Orleans, February 17th and 18th.
Right now it's the 5th one down because Lancaster, Pennsylvania is competing with us.
Yeah, because that dope who's hosting that meet on December 9th is jumping the gun here.
Who's hosting Lancaster?
Just kidding, Mark. You're
Oh,
on.
Mark's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he gets dibs because he's next up.
Yeah.
He's the next.
Well,
meet
yeah,
that's
that'll
gonna
be
happen.
over with in a month. So.
Yeah, I will have the floor to myself for a couple of months, I suppose. But yeah, so that's the thread on the forum, and then if you go through the like the posts on that thread, you'll find links to the Facebook event page, which I know I've shared to a couple of groups that I run and a couple of groups that you run. Also, I know I've shared it to your.
It's
your
in the
pages
Gulf Coast
before.
Roads group, I think, and 504 Road Trips group.
There's also a new Road Meets group, which was created recently. That's what it's called. It's called Road Meets.
Mm.
And it's for basically posting information and news, and there's the occasional nostalgic post as well about past meets in there. But that's what that group was set up for as well. So that's another Facebook option for you to check out also. We just passed the interchange for State Highway 641, which takes you down to US 61 near Gramercy, and there's a bridge over the Mississippi River not far from there as well.
One
AKA,
of the bridges to nowhere.
I stole my thunder on that one. I was gonna say they thought it would be a great idea to build this bridge in the middle of nowhere that nobody would use.
The Northwest Indiana Elevators will be in New Orleans for the road meet. That's good. I want to meet Northwest Indiana Elevators. He's the only other person I know of that's been to Dickinson, North Dakota.
Is he really? I didn't know that.
He did elevator tours at the hotel that we stayed at the last time we were there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm
Really?
pretty sure that's who it was.
Oh, all right. Yeah, Jay gets around quite a bit, so
Yeah.
that actually does not surprise me. Yeah, you know what? Maybe what I'll do, since we have some time, if people want to ask questions about the meet, I certainly am more than willing to field them, over the course of the rest of this episode. So if people have stuff that they want to ask about some of the stuff that's going on from a planning perspective, or logistical stuff that they're curious about, I don't know, between Jason and I, we have maybe half a brain, so we can maybe figure that out. And you've got the half a brain.
We can give directions to the Oasis Motel and.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we can take this conversation in that direction if you like.
So who else is coming to New Orleans for the road meet now?
I hope I hope everybody's raising their hand.
And
Right
I think
about
Laura
now.
said she couldn't get off work, and I know she loves New Orleans, so I'm sure she's really disappointed if she can't make it.
I don't want to speak for her directly, but I get the feeling that Laura would consider New Orleans to be one of her happy places.
Oh, she said it in the chat.
No, I know.
Like 3 or 4 times since we've been talking about it.
Yeah.
And I know I've heard her say that in previous live streams that she did with you.
Yes, she is. She was basically my sidekick for a bunch of episodes there for a while.
Yep. Oh, she says we both have brains, so.
Well, allegedly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. I'm gonna post the link to. This is the link to the thread in the AA Roads forum for the meet.
There you go.
So that's in the chat now for you guys. And then I can see if I can. Well, I didn't mean to close out of that. Whoops. I'll see if I can dig up the links to a couple of the Facebook links that you people would find interesting. Let's see. Can Dan navigate his browser on his phone? That's the game we should play tonight. Is it ain't looking it ain't looking so good right now.
What are you trying to pull?
Well, I'm gonna try to find. Maybe you could do it.
Yeah, just tell me what you're trying to do.
The event page on Facebook for the New Orleans meet. I know you have that bookmarked, right?
Well, I know I responded to it, but I haven't seen it since. What's it titled?
I would think it's the same as the thread on the forum. It's got to be similar to that.
National Road Meet, New Orleans, Louisiana.
That sounds familiar.
27 people interested. Of course, 2 of them live in this house here, and I'm sure you're also one of them. So that's 3 out of 27.
I think that's a safe bet.
Okay, so I'm gonna post the link to the Facebook group. Of course, you have to have a Facebook account to be able to look at it.
Well, I would imagine people on here have.
You'd be surprised at who doesn't have Facebook accounts.
You think so?
Oh, will it let me post a link?
You should be able to copy and paste it into the chat. Yeah.
Okay, show me the chat.
Or maybe Scott already did.
Oh wait, here's the chat.
Yeah, that's what Scott just posted in the chat.
Okay, yeah, and it didn't accept mine. I'm not a moderator.
You know what? Maybe that's why. Yeah, because I think there is still a thing where like.
Yeah, no, it automatically kicks those back into the just like if somebody comments a link, it kicks it into the held for review, which I don't even know how you would even see that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. He's got it on there.
Yep. Yep. So those are a couple of links that interested folks in this event can check out, and we will obviously be talking a lot more about this city and this part of the country. There's a New Orleans webinar that is in development as we speak, and as I said, I'm going to try to put that together in the next few weeks for you guys. So it ain't going to be boring at my world headquarters in Fishkill, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got this on the horizon. I'm here this weekend. And next weekend, I'm going to be in Maryland doing the Bay Bridge run, which will be a lot of fun. It'll be my second year doing that.
Maryland, what bridge?
The Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
The one that goes under the water and above the water? The bridge tunnel? It's a different bridge?
No, this is US 50.
Oh, okay.
East from Annapolis. Which is, I think it's...
Okay. And you're going to run across the bridge?
It's a 10K, yeah. So
I don't understand why anybody would run if somebody's not chasing you. That's just...
Well, see, I understand your drift on that.
It's kind of like jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I never got into the running craze myself.
Yeah.
But it is a unique opportunity to walk/run across a bridge of that length and of that prominence.
I see a number of people are interested in this.
Yeah, as we approach Laplace, which I would say that's probably like the western fringe of New Orleans Metro.
Yeah, I believe Laplace is considered part of the metro. Wow, an Airstream.
You don't see many of those on the road, do you?
Not anymore. Wow.
Here's that's another way in motion thingy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that the National Southern Termini of US 51 and 61 are not that far from each other. 51 ends at 61.
Well, as does 71. Well, 71 ends at 90.
Okay.
But at one time, they all ran concurrent to the corner of Broad and on 2-lane.
51 ran in?
There was like
highway?
6 of them.
Really?
Yeah, almost every, including Highway 11, every U.S. highway that came into Louisiana
Really? I didn't know
joined
that.
up. Yeah, back in the old days before they started truncating
Like
U.S. highways.
Yeah.
Um,
Like eliminating concurrencies and stuff like that.
yeah, I don't know if 71 did because that's a pretty good distance, but there was a bunch of them that all came in at the corner of Broad and 2-lane where 61 ends.
Yeah, that is one spot we didn't go see today, but
And that's something that should probably be on the itinerary or at least drive through.
you think so?
Yeah. Even
Yeah.
though the N61 sign is gone.
Although I don't know, like we saw a lot of new signs driving around today.
Yeah.
So I don't. Maybe they could have put
I
up.
drove by there a few months ago and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So I doubt that they've put
Yeah,
one up since then.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, the southern terminus of US 61 is kind of a big deal. It is the Blues Highway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's another musical reference for you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can work that in, because that is a pretty symbolic spot.
It is. And that's one of, so 51, where's 51 go up north? Does that go all the way to northern Minnesota? No, that's 71.
No, 61 goes up and past Minneapolis and
So
up that
71
way.
follows I-29.
Yeah,
roughly.
that's right. Yep.
61 ends just north of Minneapolis. At one time it went all the way to the Canadian border.
51 goes up into Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, okay.
Yeah. 51 and 41.
Hurley, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So 51 south end is at 61.
Yeah, they
There's
do
no
kind
end
of
sign.
on 51.
No. The only end sign I've ever seen on one of those was at 61, and it's gone.
Okay, we've passed. There's no direct access to 55 north from I-10 east, but 55 southbound is merged in on the right. And we enter the Bonnie-Carey Spillway Bridge, which is another one of these long, I think this one's about 8 or 9 miles.
Did it just jump forward, or are we getting a bad connection?
Well, this was filmed on a different day from everything
okay.
that we've seen up to this point.
Okay.
So, this is just an example of me splicing files together so that it all works right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spillway itself is a diversionary tool that will divert excess Mississippi River water away from New Orleans during times of high water. It'll direct the flow into Lake Pontchartrain rather than sending the water downriver into the city. Obviously, that spillway doesn't need to be used these days because of how low the river levels are, but I would say openings of this spillway are somewhat frequent. It doesn't happen too often, but they will open some of the floodgates every once in a while during times of high water. And when that happens, New Orleans literally becomes an island at that point.
Yeah.
Because you've got Lake Pontchartrain to the north, you've got Lake Bourne to the east, and you've got the Mississippi River running through the city, and of course you have the Gulf of Mexico to the south.
Trying to find historic operations of Bonnie-Carey Spillway. It can't be 5 years since the last time it was open.
Number of spillway structures along the lower river, like in Louisiana, some of which have not even needed to be opened more than once or twice over their lifespans. You know, I'm thinking of the Morganza spillway, for
Yeah.
instance, which I
It's
think
only been
is
open once.
yeah, I think that's right. Um,
This says that the Bonnie Carey hasn't been open since 2011.
that doesn't sound right. I feel like it's been opened at least once in recent years, like the last few years.
That's what I'm thinking. What year did they open the Morganza?
Well, Morganza was engineered in the 1950s, I think.
No, but when did they actually open it to let water
Oh,
through?
I want to say it was the 73 flood, I think, would have been the one. Maybe in 2011 also.
No, it was in the last 10 years or so that they opened it.
In Morganza?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know about that.
Yeah, because they had people that had like built homes on the floodplain.
Well,
they had this one dude that put this big water-filled dam around his house to keep it from flooding. Okay, so the Bonnie Carey was opened in 2019 twice. 18,
Okay.
16, 11, 08, 97, 83, 79, 75, 73, 50, 45, and 37. So it's only been open, what, 17, 18 times?
Yeah, which is not that many,
Yeah.
considering how long it's been around.
But in the last 10 years, it's been open 5 times.
Hmm. Yeah, the construction of the spillways was in the levees and the other flood control structures was undertaken in the aftermath of the Great Flood of 1927. That was the big storm that really made the federal government rethink management of the Mississippi River Basin and made them really think long and hard about wanting to protect the cities along the waterway. So that was the initial event that caused a lot of these structures to become a reality decades later. A lot of this was built in the 30s and the 40s. Other structures were built much more recently than that. The Morganza spillway was completed in 1954, for instance, and it has, as we alluded to before, it's only been open twice.
73 and 11.
Yeah.
And then as Scott just said, planned to open in 2019, but they didn't have to.
Yeah. Yeah, so the water management side of all of this is really interesting, and we don't have enough time to dive into that, but the engineer in me really gets a little giddy thinking about like all the planning that went into this kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is one of the reasons why I say that New Orleans is kind of a miracle, in that, I mean, just think of all the engineering work that had to go into planning, like the structures and all that stuff, the water diversion, methods and all that help keep New Orleans dry, which I think it's safe to say that, without them, there might be a city that exists, but it certainly wouldn't have a huge metro area tied to it either.
Yeah.
Our next interstate highway coming up is I-310, which is a spur down to the Mississippi River Bridge at Destrehan, and it connects in with US 90. As that highway heads further west out towards Homa in that area. As we enter the New Orleans metro area proper.
The city of Kenner right after this next on ramp.
Yeah, good old Kenner, y'all.
Kennebra.
Is that what they call it? first exit coming up is for Loyola. That's where New Orleans International Airport is located. The call letters for the airport are MSY, which is a callback to the original name of the airport, which was Moisant Field, which was built in the 1940s.
MSY is Moisant Stockyard, actually.
Is that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just a really screwed up spelling of Moisant, or abbreviation for Moisant. Moisant Stockyard.
Yeah.
The stockyard was there. Moisant was a daredevil pilot who crashed his plane there. And so it became called Moisant Stockyard, and they named the airport after him.
Now, when this video was filmed in February 2023, the flyovers that you see up ahead that connect I-10 westbound with the airport were not yet completed. And now that I am here in November of 2023 recording this episode, I can happily report that those flyovers are open and are carrying traffic. I got to drive one of them today. These are the ramps that connect you directly with the new terminal, which opened in 2019, and that was an absolute disaster. How you had, for what, 3+ years, you had the new terminal, but you didn't have any real direct route between the interstate and the terminal. So the local streets down below, like Loyola and Williams, were absolutely choked with traffic most hours of the day, with airport traffic. But that appears to have finally been rectified. The other thing I want to mention about Loyola is that is the site of the first diverging diamond interchange in the state of Louisiana. That project is happening as we speak. The local street, Loyola, is now striped in a diverging diamond configuration, so you can go and check that out right now. That project is kind of now in its next stage, now that the flyovers are open, so that will probably still be under construction come February.
But it is functional. I think they just have to get the curbs in, and there's new, like, the curbing has to go in, it has to be all repaved, they have to put the signage up. It is kind of weird how it's set up right now. Like, yeah. I can imagine that's going to be really confusing for drivers. Well, I mean, we saw, and we have video of it, which eventually will be on YouTube, but we saw, well, Dan was very confused, and he was in the wrong lane, but there was somebody in front of him that just, like, stopped at the gore point and didn't know which way to go, and we went around that person. But yeah, I mean, it's just not very well. It's not complete, so it just doesn't look right, and it's really hard to navigate. Even though Dan and I both know how to navigate a diverging diamond, it's not complete.
Well, because it's the first one in this part of the country, there's going to be mass confusion.
Yeah. Because
some people have seen them in their travels, but a lot of people haven't. But one of the running jokes with Jason and I on the road today was that we were capturing on camera the great students of the New Orleans School of Driving. There was a lot of that on display today, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's never a dull moment when you're driving.
It's the general lawlessness, which I think is happening everywhere, but yeah, it's like the Wild West out there. You know, people don't feel like waiting for a red light, they just run it.
Yeah, they just
and
go.
We saw several examples of that today.
Yeah.
You know.
It was just out of control.
But yeah, the only functional diverging diamond that I've ever actually driven through is the one in Biloxi, or D'Iberville, Mississippi. D'Iberville.
Oh, this is on I-10?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's at Auto Mall Parkway and I-10 right before what's that auxiliary interstate? That's 110 also. Yeah. Yeah, that one, when I found out about that one, of course we go out there on a regular basis, but I had to go make a trip and video that one because That's the only diverging diamond I've ever been on. There was one that we encountered on US 61 in Missouri, I think, and it's where 61, one of the many places 61 crosses I-55, and it was partially, it was kind of like what we saw today, but it wasn't crossing over, the traffic wasn't crossing over itself yet, but you could see that's what they were building.
Okay.
They were starting to kind of, put curbs in to make a diverging diamond.
Gotcha.
And I'm sure within a month of when I videoed that it was complete.
So we passed the interchange for
Clear.
Clearview, which takes you down to the Huey Long Bridge, which takes you over to the West Bank. And the next exit will be for Causeway, which takes you up to the Causeway over Lake Pontchartrain. I would say Causeway, that strip there is kind of like the center of Metairie, like the business center and maybe even the commercial center.
New Orleans hasn't come out and said they won't bother removing violations. They just don't have the staff on the NOPD to fool with moving violations.
Yeah, see, that's another one of these topics that we could dive into if we had more time. But yeah, it's sad. It really is that the state of affairs with NOPD is obviously far from idyllic at this point.
Yeah. Coming up on Causeway now.
Yeah, it's the Causeway interchange. And this is the last exit eastbound before reaching the city line.
No. Oh, yeah, now it is, that's right. Bonneville used to have its own exit, but that's been completely absorbed by this humongous...
Yeah, whenever they redid this, they just incorporated that in, I think.
Yeah, you have to get off there to get off at Bonneville. This whole interchange here has turned into a complete monster. I spent half a day driving the ramps to try and get video of all of them, and I still didn't get all of them. And it wound up being an hour-long video.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really impressed by the flyovers at that interchange. Those are pretty impressive.
Oh, and they go every which direction and make kind of weird loops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They used as much of the original cloverleaf as they could. But at one time, that was called the Causeway Park and Ride Cloverleaf because it was like a parking lot. It was just a disaster because, like I said, a lot of businesses moved out of the CBD in New Orleans and moved to Metairie. And during rush hour, there's more people whose destination is right off the Causeway and I-10 than there is in downtown New Orleans.
Yeah, that's not surprising. Yeah. As we hit the 10-6-10 split, we cross the 17th Street Canal and enter the city of New Orleans, which has a population of about 370,000 per the 2020 census. 610 is basically the shortcut within the city to get you around the central business district. But we kind of take a turn to the south here so that we can reach downtown. Yeah, this is around where we drove past that. So there was some dope who crashed into the median barrier and knocked over one of the light poles.
One of the few remaining light poles.
Yeah, because all the other ones have been knocked down already.
I don't know how you knock down a light pole that's sitting on top of a 5-foot high Jersey curb or K-rail or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I was impressed by that one.
On this strip right here, there was like leading up to the next overpass, and look, there's several missing here.
Yeah,
they've been missing for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of these up here at the Carrollton overpass that was knocked over.
It was, yeah, it was right in this stretch here. And notice, well, no, there's none here because they're on the outside. But now, okay, they come back on the inside here, and it was one of these up here that was just
Yeah.
gone.
Yep.
And it must have been in the left lane.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was one of the ones in the middle of the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this elevated structure here is called the Carrollton Overpass, and from the top of this, you have a nice view of downtown New Orleans.
It's actually the Toni Morrison interchange.
Is that what they're calling it these days?
Well, that's what it has been since it was built. There's a plaque somewhere. Nobody calls it that. There's
I
a
was
plaque
gonna say that's
somewhere.
probably the first time I've ever heard it.
Yeah, there's a plaque somewhere on one of the bridge supports. It might be on Carrollton Avenue. Somewhere there's a plaque that says that.
Yeah.
Toni Morrison was the son of New Orleans Mayor Shep Morrison,
Oh.
who was, that dates back to the 40s or 50s.
Okay, here is the split with US 90 Business, which continues straight or compass southeasterly to the Mississippi River Bridge, whereas I-10 kind of exits off of itself to continue east onto the elevated structure above Clayborn Avenue as we enter the CBD itself, and we are treated to this nice view of the Superdome, one of the more impressive stadiums I've ever been in, and I've been in quite a few at this point, and you have a nice view of the downtown skyline as well.
Yeah, I-10 exits off itself.
Well, the reason why that happened is because the Pontchartrain Expressway was the through route. It was envisioned as the main thoroughfare through the city. So anything else was going to be kind of its own exit ramp.
Yeah.
Just because of how this was
it's
laid
a left
out.
exit, but really, yeah, you're right. I-10 does make the exit. It's weird.
Yeah. And now we have the elevated structure above Clayborn Avenue for a little while. Hey, another elevated bridge in Louisiana.
Yep.
Imagine that. This one has been sort of the subject of significant debate in recent years about possible freeway removal. I don't think we're anywhere close to a decision on that, but it is one of those things that does come up every once in a while.
They're going to have to do something pretty soon, though, because it's getting older and older, and there's going to be some sort of structural failure that's going to, it's well beyond its expected lifespan.
I think it's about 60 years old at this point, isn't it?
It was built in 1960. So what's that, 63 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the French Quarter is directly to the right. You can see the Vauqueray exit there.
Yep.
That takes you into the quarter. It's not immediately adjacent. This is actually going through Treme, which you probably know, the TV series Treme. That was about post-Katrina New Orleans.
I don't know that I've heard about that one.
Really? It was an HBO or Showtime series.
Oh, okay.
Incidentally, none of that series was shot in the Treme.
Oh, really?
No, it was shot mostly uptown.
Oh. Were they sharing, like, sets with NCIS New Orleans, or not really?
No, this was long before NCIS New Orleans. This was like it only ran for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and it was like not long after Katrina.
Okay.
I would say it was done by 2010. And incidentally, I was talking about Toni Morrison. Shep Morrison's son was named Toni Morrison, but it was spelled Toni, and I always assumed that Toni Morrison was female. I don't know why. And it's probably, Tony is short for Antoine, more than likely, rather than Anthony.
That sounds.
They're French, so you got a lot of French people in New Orleans,
right?
And so Tony was a man, not a woman.
in this case, yeah.
Yeah.
So as we emerge from the immediate downtown area, up ahead we will have a merge with I-610, which had split away from us a few minutes ago. As I said before, that was kind of the shortcut across the north side of the city. It'll merge in. There's no direct access from I-10 east to 610 west, not surprisingly.
Because why?
Well, I think, right, yeah. So
and if you want to do it, you can do it. You just have to get off at Elysian Fields and jump over.
Yeah. So after the 610 merge, we'll touch down on dry ground again briefly before we take off on, I know this is one of your favorite bridges in the New Orleans area, Jason. That's the high rise.
Oh, yeah.
It's another New Orleans classic dating from the early 60s.
And talk about substandard roadways.
This is the industrial canal that this bridge crosses over. So dividing the main part of the city with the eastern New Orleans area.
Right.
Yeah, so no shoulders on either side. No...
Steeper than it's supposed to be as well.
A lot steeper, yeah. And then one of the reasons why this is such a choke point for traffic is because the trucks can't make the grade at the speed limit.
Right.
So this causes traffic to back up routinely on this bridge.
So as Mark is talking about here, if they were to eliminate the Clayborn Expressway, then the current 610 would have to become the main line of I-10. And it would work. It could work if I-610 was widened to 8 lanes, but can it? Well, no, it can't be. There's no place to widen it, and I-610 runs through City Park, and that's one of those problems that's come up all over the place. After I-610, I think Dan, you told me that after I-610 was built, wasn't there some kind of legislation to prevent that from happening again?
Yeah, like seizure of parkland for the
Right.
construction of freeways, yeah.
And so, like, the reason why I-20 is so weird, is it 20 in Memphis?
40.
No. I-40 is so weird in Memphis is because they were going to cut right through the city park in Memphis.
Yeah.
And they put a stop to it. So, yeah, they would have a real hard time widening I-610 to 8 lanes because of that park.
Yeah.
And we kind of explored some of the 610 corridor today. There are places where there's room to widen it, but not the whole way. And if you don't widen it the whole way, you're going to have a bottleneck.
Right, yeah.
And it's just pointless, to just widen part of it.
There would have to be a lot of work done at the interchanges as well, especially the western interchange there in the west end, where I-10 comes back in. 'Cause
Right.
you'd have to make that fully functional as a fully directional interchange.
And then the other option would be to make I-12 the I-10 main line, and then make I-10 to 610, and then back to I-10, to
Yeah,
Slidell,
wow.
make all of that 610.
Wow.
Make the entire thing an auxiliary interstate, which would maybe prompt fewer people to drive through New Orleans, since you wouldn't actually be hitting the downtown area anymore.
Well, if they did that, then New Orleans would easily become the largest metro without a primary interstate.
Right. Yeah.
Little
And that's the
food
reason
for
why
thought.
that'll never happen.
I don't see that happening.
That's the
either.
reason why I-12, which is a real oddball in the system, exists.
Yeah. It is one of those. It's kind of in the middle, right? Like it really should be a main line, but it's not really long enough to be a main line, so
Mhm.
it's kind of in that gray area.
And it's an interstate.
Yep.
I-12 should have just been another, like, 410 or something.
Yeah. Well. New Orleans East is the section of the city we're passing through right now. This wasn't really built out and developed until long after World War II, like 1960s, is when a lot of this was developed and constructed. And there's a lot that we could say about this part of town that I think we'll save for the New Orleans webinar. But it is, in my opinion, a cautionary tale of what happens when urban planning goes bad and is not fulfilled to the extent that planners think that things are going to be fulfilled to. There's a lot of stuff that we could talk about as far as the ideas behind New Orleans East were really interesting, but things just didn't go right from a planning and a construction standpoint. And then this also coincided with the oil bust of the 1980s, which led to a lot of people leaving the city, and that certainly didn't help, the development of this area either. And so what you're left with is kind of a partial vision that just isn't really all that pleasant to see all up close and personal. But as you and I were looking at earlier today out this way, there's a couple of things that are worth checking out in person. Obviously, the thing that a lot of people will focus on is the old Jazzland Amusement Park, which is out at the 510 and I-10 interchange. And there's other abandoned roads and ramps and all sorts of stuff. Like there's frontage roads that are abandoned out that way, and road geeks certainly love that kind of stuff too. So there's a couple of things that we have up our sleeve for this part of the city that we'd like to show you guys in February. Here's the 510 interchange coming up next. 510 is a short spur that leads to the bridge over the Intracoastal Waterway, which takes you, that one. That takes you down to Chalmette and St. Bernard Parish. 510 and 310, which we encountered some distance back, were both conceived as part of the same project to build a southern outer bypass of New Orleans, which provisionally had the interstate number 410. The larger plan got scrapped in the 1970s. I think it was officially canceled in 1977. It would have involved, in addition to the Mississippi River Bridge that was built as part of I-310, it would have involved the construction of another bridge somewhere in the Chalmette area. That would have become the new most furthest downstream bridge on the Mississippi River. And a number of elevated structures as well in the St. Bernard Parish wetlands and also the wetlands of southern Jefferson Parish in order to construct a fully functional interstate highway through that area. The environmental movement of the 1970s, coupled with financial issues at the state and federal level and funding the construction of new interstate highways, ultimately put a stop to that plan. And the interstates 310 and 510 that we see today are the only sections of that proposal that ever saw the light of day in construction. Should we talk about the marsh fires that are going on out this way?
We mentioned that earlier, didn't
we mention that
earlier?
earlier?
Yeah, we're talking about the super fog. There is a marsh fire currently burning out here in the Bayou Sauvage area, and there's another one in St. Bernard Parish, which isn't far from here, which is contributing to these super fog events. This area here, several years back, probably, 12, 13 years ago, there was a pretty bad marsh fire burning out here, and I encountered one of these super fog events kind of right in this area here, and it went from, you could see it was a little foggy to zero visibility in an instant.
Wow.
And the smell of that marsh fire, it's like a dumpster fire. It's a very distinctive smell, and I remember every time I drive through New Orleans East while that was going on, I would make sure and hit that research button so that I wasn't bringing any fresh air into the car, because that fresh air smelled so bad.
Yeah, it did not smell pleasant
when
we were out there earlier today.
I mean, it's like, imagine a McDonald's dumpster that's been baking in the sun all day long, and then it catches fire. That's what it smells like.
Because the important thing to remember is that it's not really the trees that are burning; it's the ground underneath.
It's already rotten vegetation.
Yeah.
that gets turned into smoke so you can smell the rotten vegetation.
Yeah, it's the rotten organic matter at the bottom of the marsh that's on fire,
Yeah.
and so that gives off, all those pleasant fumes. And the reason why it's able to burn the way that it is because this organic matter, as it decays, it gives off methane, which of course is a very flammable gas.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the marsh is submerged in water, it'll still burn under the water for a period of time.
And where we're sitting right now, which is probably 15 miles from the nearest fire, maybe 20 miles, if the wind blows in this direction, you can smell that marsh fire.
And it depends, yeah, like you'll get plumes of haze and smoke out this way. And that I encountered that this morning,
Mm-hmm.
before I met up with you. Like there would be periods where the sky was clear,
Mm-hmm.
and then like you would just get this cloud of whatever you want to call it, just drift over. I was in Algiers for a lot of the morning.
Right.
And yeah, it would just all of a sudden get very hazy, and you would have a hard time seeing the skyline across the river. And of course, it didn't smell very nice either.
Right.
That was the other problem. Yeah, so I mean, this is one of those unfortunate side effects of how dry it's been around here this summer. Don't expect that to be a problem come February, but that is one thing I'm having to work through this weekend while I'm out here. We are coming up on that US 11 interchange. There are two bridges that directly connect eastern New Orleans with Slidell in St. Tammany Parish. The US 11 bridge has been around much longer than the I-10 bridge has. I think the US 11 crossing goes back to the
1922, I think.
The 20s, right?
Yeah. It's 100 years old.
Yeah. Which is kind of it's amazing that that's the bridge that survived Katrina, not the I-10 bridge.
Well, the I-10 bridge served as a breakwater,
I guess.
and prevented the larger waves from coming in and knocking down the Highway 11 bridge.
Yeah, right.
And it's recently been completely refurbished. So
Yeah, I think it was closed for a while, wasn't it?
Closed for several years.
Yeah. Yeah, the original I-10 twin spans over the lake were a Katrina casualty. And so they were able to literally piece it back together on a temporary basis before they built the new twin spans, which are the bridges we're going to be crossing over here shortly. And that project was complete around 2010, 2011, something like that.
Yeah, now I can't even tell you what year they opened new twin spans.
Well,
that sounds about right.
Yeah, well, they had a hell of a time just piecing it back together so that they could reopen one of the two bridges.
Yeah, but they did that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly quickly, considering all the other stuff they had to deal with at that time.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why the recovery and response to Katrina was so slow to develop in some cases, because the storm surge just took out I-10 being one of the main thoroughfares in and out of the city.
Mm-hmm.
That was knocked out of commission for an extended period of time. I think the US 11 bridge was only open to emergency responders for quite a while. I seem to remember that being the case, or hearing about that being the case.
The first time I was able to drive through New Orleans, which was weeks before they officially opened I-10 through New Orleans back up, I was able to drive across Highway 11. It was like there was nobody stopping me from going into the city, so I just went ahead and drove in. And,
Yeah, right.
Nobody questioned me on the way.
Yeah.
Parts of I-10 in the Bayou Sauvage area was still flooded.
Okay, yeah.
But once they opened I-10, through New Orleans, you could drive Highway 11 because that was the only way across the lake at that point.
Yeah.
So 90 was down because the swing bridge at Chef Pass was stuck in the open position. Or it had come off of its mount or whatever. They had to bring a crane out there and reset it.
Yeah.
That took a long time. That was 6 months probably.
So there were just very limited ways in and out of the metro for a while after that.
I want to say the Causeway had some displaced spans as well.
It might have.
But at the Causeway, they have like spare spans because they've had spans get knocked off the piers by barges and stuff like that over the years. And
do they?
They have spare spans, and they have the equipment pretty close by that they can replace a span in the Causeway pretty quick.
Oh, okay.
I had a barge hit the Causeway and a car full of nuns got knocked off and they all died.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that was back in the 70s, I guess.
Wow.
There was a guy that lived not far from here. A friend of mine bought their house from his wife. Was killed in the Causeway by some kind of a watercraft that hit the bridge and knocked the span off.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So the new twin spans that we're crossing are wider. I think the original bridges were just 2 lanes each direction, 2 lanes, right? Yeah. So
they were much lower to the water.
Right.
I think they were only like 10 or 12 feet over the water, whereas this is, I think,
25 to 30 feet. Yeah.
And the high rise is much higher.
Yep. So these new bridges are designed with much higher storm surges in mind. So when we touch down on dry land again, we will enter Slidell and St. Tammany Parish. Our last parish of the evening. Yep. Yeah, before the construction of I-10 and Lake Pontchartrain Causeway and all that stuff, there was hardly anything out this way. This was all the countryside, but that's what happens when you build highways. It just springs up all these new bedroom communities, and Slidell is certainly one of them. And the construction of the causeway resulted in the same thing sort of happening out in Mandeville and Madisonville and Covington out that way.
The development you see right here on the right is since Hurricane Katrina too.
Yeah, a lot of the lakefront development has been recent, hasn't it?
Well, on the left is Eden Isles. Eden Isles has been there for 30 or 40 years, but the stuff on the right, like when you got off this exit, there was nothing. It was a dead end. There was like a couple of gas stations and a bank, and then that was it. Now there's a big subdivision over here.
Yeah.
We getting a bad signal or what? Got TVs on Wi-Fi, so it might just be that.
Okay. So we are going to start to wrap this up. We've got under 10 minutes of video remaining tonight, so we are going to start to wrap things up here in a few minutes. So if there's anything that you would like us to address, all you lovely viewers out there, anything that you would like us to talk about that we may have not, maybe we haven't covered to this point, or maybe we already have and you'd like us to rehash for you again, we could do that too if you like. Jason and I are at your service for the next 10-15 minutes or so.
Yeah, because it's past my bedtime.
Is it past your bedtime?
Not really.
Oh, okay. It's almost past my bedtime.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're an hour off. And then we set the clocks back tonight.
That's right.
So we get that extra hour of sleep.
Yep, so don't forget to switch your clocks back.
But that means it'll be dark at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Alright, so I can just go to bed at like 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
We might have to make your kitty cats the new moderators for my channel. You know, they've really taken an interest in my presence here tonight.
Yep. That's Bailey.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you want all my attention, don't you?
So to recap for camera red eye, the speed camera or the average speed cameras on the Atchafalaya Bridge are not active yet, but they will be very soon. And I don't think they were visible in this video. When was this shot? February?
February of 23.
Okay.
Yep.
And there was another question, but I forgot what it was. And I can't see the chat that far back. So the Chipotle to the left, there's a very nice town square type shopping center here in Slidell, or there in Slidell. And we stop at the Red Robin every time we go through there, because we don't have a Red Robin in New Orleans.
No, really?
No. They used to have one in Baton Rouge, but it shut down. So Slidell's the only one. We stopped there when we were heading up to make our Highway 11 trip.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so here's the big confluence of mainline interstates. We passed the western terminus of I-12 about, what, an hour and a half ago? Something like that?
An hour ago.
And here's I-12 again,
Yep.
This time at its eastern end. So if you took I-12 across the north shore of the lake, basically everything that's happened in the last hour and change, you would have missed. And then 10 will turn to the east to stay along the Gulf Coast. And I-59 begins here and heads generally northward, northeasterly, up towards Hattiesburg and Meridian, Mississippi, before heading up into Alabama.
Ending in Chattanooga?
Yeah, outside of there, yeah.
Does it make it into Tennessee?
It does not make it into Tennessee.
Does it hit... What state does it end in? Georgia?
It ends in Georgia.
Okay.
It's actually...
It's only got a few miles in Georgia.
Yeah, it's about 20 miles in Georgia, but I-24 is only in Georgia for 4 miles, and within that stretch is where I-59 comes in. It's one of only 2 interchanges in the state of Georgia for I-24.
Right. And yeah, I-10 does exit off itself again here, because I-10 is really the logical continuation of 12, if you look at a map.
Right. Yeah, I-10 has sort of exited off of itself a few times tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it exits off of itself at the other end of I-12, too.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I think that split, more lanes follow 12 east than follow 10.
Yeah. I think 3 take 12 and 2 take 10. So from here, there's no more exits in the state of Louisiana.
Yep.
This is where you put the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, this is where you can floor it, right?
Yeah. There's not likely to be any police. And there's usually not a whole lot of traffic here. I mean, right here, it's wide open.
Yeah.
On the other side, there's a rest area, like the Louisiana Welcome Station.
Yeah, we're now in the Pearl River Delta area. Did you mention the US 90 closure?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier too.
We already mentioned that? Okay.
And this is one of those spots where I-10 gets, narrows down to 2 lanes, no shoulders, and there tends to be accidents here.
Yeah.
From either direction, and that's what shuts down I-10, and makes it necessary to have a bypass like a Highway 90. And in the case of some of the accidents recently, it was tankers, exploded, and caught fire, and so they had to shut down the interstate for hours and hours, and the only way around is to go up I-59 and take a convoluted route on Texas Flat Road, which goes up around the back of Stennis Space Center.
Yeah.
And puts you back on I-10 5 or 6 miles, or no, I guess it's 2 miles into Mississippi, but it's a 30-mile detour to cover 5 miles of highway.
Yeah, it's very out of the way, right?
Yeah.
So I know you covered this a couple hours back when we got started, but we can expect more US 11 videos from you.
US 11 all the
future.
way to Rouse's Point, New York.
So.
That's going to take a while. It sucks because the first day we had a beautiful day. We made it all the way up to Abingdon, Virginia. The next day it rained, and the next day it rained. And our third day, I guess, it was the second to last day of filming Highway 11. We actually ran out of daylight, and we were trying to make it somewhere, and I really don't even know how the video came out. It was rainy and getting dark because of the rain.
Yeah.
There was one really nice spot in Virginia where we were on this mountain road, and we were driving the Civic Si, which can take turns really fast. And
yeah.
I got up to about 70 miles on this road before I realized you're only supposed to go 35. But it was fun for a few minutes, and we slowed down. And I don't even know where that was. When I record these road trip videos, a lot of times I don't know where we've been until I watch the video because, it all kind of runs together.
I know. Like when I go away for a week or two, like sometimes I just need a couple of days to refresh my memory of what I covered.
Yeah.
It's like it all kind of just blends into itself after a while.
This is the state line here, isn't it?
I believe this is the state line. This is the main stem of the Pearl River.
Yeah, you're in Mississippi now.
Yeah. And with that, we leave the friendly confines of Louisiana, and that's going to bring our trip to an end for this evening. I certainly hope you guys have enjoyed this first live show in quite a while. Not since the early summer have we done a live show. But certainly expect to have more of these kinds of things in the future. It's the fall moving into the winter, so there's going to be a lot more live content. There's going to be plenty more where this kind of stuff came from as well. I'm working on a number of different live episodes right now. I hope to have a bunch more webinars ready for release sometime starting in the month of December, which will be here before you know it. But this has been a lot of fun, Jason. Thank you for having me over at 504 Road Trips World Headquarters here in beautiful
504 Studios.
Yeah, that's a good name for it. This is
Jefferson Parish, Louisiana.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun to do this tonight, and it's always good to take the show on the road every once in a while. Yeah. And this has been great. So my thanks to him for hosting tonight's festivities, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, I hope you have clicked the like button. If you are new to the channel, I hope you have subscribed. Subscribe to both of our channels, if you will. There's plenty of good content between the two of us. There's always something for you guys to watch out there, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode, which will be, it'll be here before you know it. So thank you all very much for watching. On behalf of Jason and all the kitty cats here in attendance, we're wrap this one up. So, thank you all for watching. We'll see you. Maybe we'll see some of you right back here in New Orleans in February. That'd be nice. So, till then, till next time, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.